There is a conversation you have probably had more than once. Nothing dramatic happened, no grand moment, no obvious connection that would make a good story. She talked, you listened, you said something. She laughed, and then it ended the ordinary way. You both moved on and went your separate ways. But something about that conversation didn't leave her the way she expected it to. You don't know this part. You were already gone. But later that day, something you said came back to her. She found herself replaying a small piece of it, a sentence, a pause, the particular way you looked at something before you answered. She couldn't fully explain why it stayed. She just noticed it was still there. That is the thing nobody talks about plainly enough. Not the obvious moments, the quiet ones, the conversations that end without ceremony and somehow refuse to actually end. Most older men have no idea this is happening. And the reason they don't know is the same reason it keeps happening. They stopped looking for it. At some point, a quiet narrative settled into the background of how you see yourself. It didn't arrive loudly. It never does. It came through years of small messages, accumulated slowly. That women who are younger exist in a different world. That their attention, when it comes your way, must have an innocent explanation. Politeness, coincidence, nothing with real weight behind it. And so you became careful. You learned to manage your own perception before it could become something embarrassing. You built a habit of shrinking the meaning of things before you could be wrong about them. But here is what that habit actually costs you. It costs you the ability to receive what is genuinely being offered, not imagined, not inflated, actually offered, in the only language most people have access to, which is not words. It is attention. It is where they choose to direct their thinking after the conversation is over. The story you were given about yourself is not accurate, and the evidence of that inaccuracy is sitting quietly in interactions you have already dismissed. She is not responding to what you look like. She is not responding to what you own or what you have built. She is responding to something she felt when she was near you, something that registered before her reasoning had time to name it. A quality of presence that is genuinely rare. Not rare in older men specifically, rare in people. The quality is this. You are no longer performing. Younger men are still in the middle of building themselves. They are tracking reactions. They are presenting a version of themselves and watching carefully to see how it lands. That is not a flaw. It is simply where they are. But it creates a low-level noise in every interaction. A background energy of trying. You are no longer doing that. Not because you gave up, but because that phase has passed. You have already done the work of deciding who you are, and what comes from that decision is something people feel before they understand it. You move without urgency. You speak without the underlying need for the response to go a specific way. You listen in a way that doesn't feel like waiting for your turn. These are not small things. In a world running at a constant, exhausting speed, they feel like solid ground under uncertain feet. And people who find solid ground don't forget where it was. It is almost never the most impressive thing you said. That is the part that surprises men when they finally understand this. It is not the moment you were funniest or most articulate or most clearly knowledgeable. It is something smaller. A pause before you answered that made her feel like you were actually thinking, not performing. A question you asked that showed you were paying real attention instead of waiting to redirect toward yourself. A moment where you disagreed with something gently but without apology, without rushing to soften it to earn her approval. Those small things carry disproportionate weight because they are so rarely experienced. Most interactions move fast. Most people are managing the impression they are making as the conversation happens. Most questions are halfway about the asker. Most agreements arrive too quickly to feel real. When something comes along that operates differently, that moves at its own pace, that pays actual attention, that holds its own position without being rigid, it stands out against everything around it. Contrast is what gets noticed, and contrast is what gets remembered. Here's the specific thing that keeps this from reaching you. When the moment arrives, when the attention is real, when the conversation lingers past where it needed to go, when she comes back to speak to you again for no particularly logical reason, the first thing that happens is doubt, not modesty. Doubt. The old story running its automatic program, explaining away what is right in front of you, finding reasons why this probably means less than it appears. That doubt is not wisdom. It is a habit formed in a different chapter of your life that is still running even though the chapter is over. The man you were at 30 needed that protection. He was still figuring things out. He could not afford to misread situations because misreading them cost him something real. But that is not the position you are in now. You have arrived somewhere. And the arrival shows, not in what you announce, in what radiates from the way you simply exist in a space. The doubt is the last thing standing between you and receiving what is actually being offered. She kept thinking about that conversation, not because it was extraordinary, because something in it felt different from everything around it. Because for a few minutes, she was near someone who wasn't trying to be anything, who was already something. And that experience does not arrive often enough that she could simply let it go without noticing. You did not chase that. You did not engineer it. You were simply there, fully, without agenda. And that was enough. That has always been enough. The only thing that ever kept you from knowing it was the story you were handed a long time ago about who gets to be noticed and who doesn't. That story was never about you. It was always wrong.